As a kid, I would have told you proudly that my dad could fix anything. He had one of those engineering, well, he still has, one of those engineering minds that just kind of instantly analyzes anything that's in front of him and starts to pick apart how it works. And so he had that, and then he has this willingness to just start taking things apart and poke at them and try, and where I'd be a little hesitant to know if I would be able to get it back together again, or if I push on this, am I going to really do more harm than good? He's willing to just kind of get in there. When I was a kid, my mother is a church organist, and we had an electronic organ, I think a little newer than this one because we didn't have vacuum tubes. But I can, my mental pictures of my dad with the back of the organ open and these massive circuit boards swung out, and there he is with his little soldering iron. And, my mom would say, "There's a dead note over here." And he'd say, "Play, no." And, he was willing to take apart the church organ. So, bold in that way. And it almost always worked out. And so I really thought that he could do just about anything. Now, as an adult, when I work alongside him, I see, oh yeah, there's an awful lot of best guesses in there and a little bit of a kludge job here and some trial and error. But as a kid, it seemed like anything he could fix. And one of the things he really did have matchless expertise about was glue. My dad really likes glue. He has a cabinet in the garage of all the different kinds of glue for the different things, because he's a material scientist, so he's like a chemical engineer, and there are glues that bond better with ceramics, and there are glues that work better on plastics or on wood, or there are some things where you might want to prepare the surface a little before you put the adhesive onto it, and some glues that are better if you're going to have a lot of expansion and contraction if things get cold. And so I can't tell you now what most of them were, but I remember that shelf on the cabinet in the garage with all the bottles and tubes. And one of my favorites were the epoxies, where you mix something out of this tube with something out of that tube with a little toothpick, and it heats up and it smells kind of funny, and that was cool. So he was a glue expert, and it was a good thing because I had a lot of little knickknacks on my shelves in my bedroom. And I'm kind of clumsy, and they were on bookshelves, so they were in between me and my books. And that's not usually a safe place to be. And so I some of them were just little trinkets, some of them had special memories, and all of them had multiple glue points. And there was this one. It was a brown dog. It was about this big, and he had his paw was bandaged. It was some little porcelain figurine, and it had been my dad's when he was a boy, so it seemed really old. This was an antique, right? And he had gotten it when he had his appendix out, because you feel like you need a consolation prize when you have to go to the hospital and get your appendix out, and somebody, thought a ceramic dog was the way to go. But it was special to me, it was his, and one way or another, over the years, I had managed to maim pretty much all of that dog's good legs. And I can remember still the last time that it happened, because I went out to the garage, and I looked in that glue cabinet, and I thought, maybe I could just take care of it myself. Maybe I don't have to bring this broken dog again to my dad. And I remember kind of looking through and being like, yeah, I think this is the one he uses. And then no one would have to know about it. I wasn't supposed to be in that cabinet, of course. There's all kinds of stuff in there that, 9 or 10-year-olds probably shouldn't be messing with. And I thought, well, okay, and, he gets a little piece of wood to mix it on. And was it these 2 tubes? And, I'm starting to read the instructions and really hoping I can keep this in-house. And then I looked at the pieces of the dog, I got all my stuff out, and I looked at the pieces of the dog, and there was the dog, and there was the leg, and then there was this little other funny bit. And I realized that even if I did everything else right, I didn't have enough hands to get the dog and the leg and the little funny bit in. I couldn't do it myself. I just was going to have to go back to my dad again. And I wasn't really afraid that he would be angry. I just really wanted to be able for this to be something that I could do myself, that I could fix my own messes and And that wasn't going to happen. So I put the glue away, and I went back into the house, and I went back to my dad with those pieces again. Return. Go back again. Return to the Lord your God. There is no way my pieces were going to be whole again until I was ready to hold them out and hand them over. Nothing was going to change while they were still in my hands. Nothing was going to change while they were still in-house, my secret. Return to the Lord your God, who is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love. I'm going to put ashes on our foreheads tonight. We're going to tell the truth, right? That's what we do on Ash Wednesday, and it's the one or maybe 2 or 3 points of faith, our faith lives in the year that Walmart doesn't have anything to sell us, right? So I'm a fan of Ash Wednesday because today's the day we tell the truth, right? The truth about us and our world. We tell the truth about sin and death. We have more in our hands. We have more in our lives. There is more in this world than we can handle. And our efforts to fix it just aren't going to cut it. We do not have the ability to hold all the pieces together. So our ashes, they tell the truth about repentance, that no sin management program is going to fix the root problem, which is that, I can stop certain behaviors and you can grow more loving, but both of us are still going to always be in some way fundamentally curved in on ourselves and interested in our own selves before anything else. And so ashes tell the truth. Martin Luther said, anything on which we depend and rely, that is really our God, right? And so ashes tell the truth about sin and repentance. And ashes tell the truth about sorrow and about suffering and grief. Because there are seasons when we don't need a reminder on our foreheads. And there are days when a little smudge of ash is a joke compared to the magnitude of the heartbreak and grief in our lives. There are times when we're choking on ashes and when we are drowning in ashes. Return to the Lord. Return to the Lord. Bring your ashes. Return to the Lord because those words, gracious and merciful, abounding in steadfast love, those words mean Jesus. Return to the Lord. Return to the Lord who never left, whose hands are there ready and expecting, honestly, to receive the broken pieces that we've been carrying around so preciously. The Lord who sees the ashes of our lives and our world and honestly didn't wait for us to return. He just came and sat down in the middle of all of it with us, sat down bodily. God with us, Jesus, Emmanuel, flesh and blood. Return to the Lord, who is abounding in steadfast love, that love that is incarnate in Jesus that doesn't give up, love that doesn't stop at the borders of respectability and sin, love that doesn't stop when we get to the end of the line or when our hope is gone, love that knows what to do with a cross, that knows what to do with our ashes and our broken pieces and our broken hearts. Love that knows what to do with all of it. Return to the Lord. And so we smear those ashy crosses on our faces tonight because they are signs of that steadfast love that conquers even death. And we come and we do it together. We put ourselves in God's hands. Thanks be to God.